Okay, so the Renault Zoe and the battery lease saga, which seems to be a bit of a scam, this has taken an interesting turn. This has gone to the next stage. So I'll talk about what we're doing with this vehicle, and it's going to get legal. And also, actually, in a minute, I'll talk about a car which is on its way to me, a Zoe, which has a fault, which has a battery lease, but is actually a write-off, which should actually never happen. So it kind of highlights the issues. But anyway, back on this car. So you may remember from the previous video, I want to end the lease on this car. So this car has a fault. It's in a really poor condition. It actually has more than one fault. And I'm worried that if I spend all the time, it's one of the main fault with the motor is probably going to be about 13, 14 hours to fix. I don't want to do all that and then have another fault with the car that's difficult to fix. So I want to end the lease. So the battery is on a rental lease agreement. I pay monthly and I want to give them the battery back. Doesn't sound too difficult. So in the terms of the lease, it says that you provide them with a month's notice to end the lease if you want to. So I rang them up and said, it says I need to do this in writing. And they said, we accept, we accept that. They effectively accepted the notice I wanted to end the lease. Okay, fine. And I said, how do I do that? I said, so you need to arrange it with your local dealer and, they'll arrange to take the battery back. And I was expecting at this point to be talking about how they were quoting me a massive figure, and that's completely unrealistic and unfair, effectively, for sort of restocking. However, we haven't even got to that stage. It's more ridiculous than that. So what's happened is basically my local dealership didn't know who I should talk to. The service advisor I spoke to wasn't really sure, put me through to parts because it sounded like I needed to give them something. Parts guy was like, I don't know why you're talking to me. But he faithfully took my information and said, I'll call you back. So I explained to him I wanted to give the battery back and whatever. So he rang me a couple of days later for a bit more information. He said he'd spoken to his manager who had some knowledge of the process and was just finding out, are you not selling the car, etc., etc. I said, no, it's faulty. I want to give the battery back and end the lease. The battery's not mine, and I have to do it through you. Okay, I'll call you back. Someone will call you back. Nobody's called back. So I rang RCI again, Renault Finance, Mobilize they're now called. Used to be called RCI. And said, I'm having difficulty arranging giving the battery back. They're your goods. I rent them. I want to give them back. Seems quite simple. So they said, it needs to be arranged. Well, actually, first of all, they said, you can't give it back. No, you can transfer it when you sell it. I was like, well, I'm not going to sell it. It's faulty. We can buy it out. I said, I don't want to buy it out. I want to give it back. You can't do that. That's what he said first. I was like, well, I'm sure you can. Anyway, he went away to check and then he admitted, yes, you can give it back. But you have to arrange that with Renault UK. Okay. So, phone call to Renault UK. How do I arrange giving this battery back? You have to do it through a local dealer. Right, okay, now we're going around in circles. So, my local dealer does not have any knowledge of this process, basically, or very limited, can't seem to arrange it. So, whereas I thought we'd be talking about how ridiculously expensive it is and the fact I think that's unfair, we haven't even got that far. I can't even arrange it. I can't pay them. We haven't got a price. There is no process. The really ridiculous thing is that I have a contract with Mobilize, the finance company, but they are relying on a third party to handle giving the battery back. But I don't have a contract with that third party. That third party has no interest whatsoever. So what that comes down to then is I have a contract I can't get out of. Effectively, they are not fulfilling their end of their side of the contract because they're relying on somebody else to take care of something, and that somebody else is not doing it. So I kind of take a very dim view if there are contractual terms and a company is not obliging, not sticking to them. And what I've done is I've submitted a letter before action to Renault. And basically, this is my letter before action. First of all, I've given them the early termination. So I advised them I want to terminate it. So I've done that in writing because it says in the contract you should do so. And then I've stated that I believe I'm being held in a contract, sort of held for ransom, effectively, held in a contract that I can't get out of. And that what I plan to do is take them to court for the buyout price. So they quoted me over the phone, £2,053.20. So I've advised to them that if they don't accept the goods in return, because I rent a battery from them. I want to give it back. The battery was collected from a UK dealership. Okay, they might want to specify it's a certain type. It's a ZE EV train dealership. Okay, fine. But I want to return the goods that I rented from the place where they were picked up from, or a similar location, to end the rental of those goods. That sounds quite reasonable to me. I think a court would say that's quite reasonable as well. So I've gone through with them in this letter that I've been trying to follow the contractual terms, that the options seem to be transferring it, which is not applicable because it's faulty, buying out, well, I don't want it, so I don't want to buy it, or it can be returned to a local ZE dealership. And I've advised that I'm trying to carry out the process that they've advised I can do, but it does not seem possible. So effectively, as far as I'm concerned, I'm being held into a contract because they cannot fulfill their side, okay, because they cannot provide a method to do what it says that you can do in this contract. And the contract's quite clear. So I've sent them this letter. That was a couple of days ago. Not had a reply. They're not very quick anyway, generally. I don't know whether they will reply or not, or whether that reply will be acceptable. But I have taken a company to court before. I had an issue with a holiday, actually. It's not really worth going into, but yeah, basically it was clear that the company hadn't fulfilled their obligations, and I took them to the small claims court for 50% of the price of the holiday, and they basically settled with me. Small claims court process is very simple, and that's what I did, and it's something like a £50 fee. The other one wasn't 2,000, but I think it's still under something like 3,000 or 5,000. It's like 50 quid or something. Very simple for sort of relatively small amounts. So, yeah, what I've said I'll do here is I'll claim the 2,053.20 from them, which when I get back, I'll pay back to them, which will end the agreement. And alternatively, they could just take the battery back to end the agreement, because I want to give it back to them. I may get this car sort of transported to my local ZE dealership so that it's sitting in their car park to prove for the legal process that I have returned the goods, because that may just emphasise the point that, you know, if you get a rental car, you want to end the rental, you take it back. You know, I don't really understand why, just because they are who they are, just because this is a battery lease, that they can be completely unreasonable, basically. So that's what we're going to do. We'll wait and see what they come back with. So I enclosed all the relevant sections in my letter, so I copied and pasted out. So it says there's a minimum term, and you have to pay up your subs and whatever if you want, 1 month notice in writing. It's all pretty clear, really. It's in black and white, which is good. Some of it refers to different situations, like it being written off or whatever, which we'll talk about in a minute in relation to the other vehicle. But that's the situation we're in. What I was expecting to happen was that the dealership would do a bit of umming and ahhing and then come back with a price, which people have quoted me about £1,400, that their local dealership are quoting for the labour to check the battery. So what happens when you want to return it, what should happen, which I can't even get to happen, is that the Renault dealership will run a diagnostic test on the battery to make sure that it's safe, basically. They just do a health check, so they know it's not going to suddenly set on fire or something. They obviously do a visual inspection as well, make sure there's not like a massive dent in it. But it all being safe, they order a special case from a battery courier. So there are companies who have licenses to move batteries, and they have special containers, basically. So they order the special box, whatever it is, so you can seal the battery. The special box arrives. They do the work to take the battery out of the car, put it in the special box, and then the battery gets picked up by the courier and taken back to France. And the sort of rough price is it's about £1,000-ish, I think, for the courier side, and about 400-ish quid, there or thereabouts, for the Renault side, for the labour of the battery diagnostic test and removing the battery. Now, at this point, if I'd have got that quote, what I would be saying to mobilize is, I don't think that is fair, because the shipping is not my responsibility, and I picked it up from the UK. They can send it back to Timbuktu, and why would I be responsible for couriering it back to France? Makes no sense. What backs that up is consumer contract law, which states that terms have to be fair, fees should be stated in contracts, which they're not. And it's just like they're trying to prevent you from getting out of this contract to just make you take the easy option and buy it out. But, I don't really like the easy option. And I think really a point needs to be made that they think they can do what they want. And I think time's come to see what a court thinks about that, frankly. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm being held in a contract, held for ransom for the buyout price, and I'm in a contract I can't get out of because they're not fulfilling their terms of the agreement. And we'll see what happens next. The ball is in their court. If they don't reply, I will start legal action. That's absolutely fine. I'll just start a small claims court process. Very simple to do. It's all there in black and white in the contract. I will happily bring the car to a Renault dealership and park it there. And then I've returned the goods as far as I'm concerned. I've given them notice to end the contract. So I'm going to tell them that I expect that I shouldn't have to pay after another month. Probably won't happen. But we shall see. So that's that one. So the car that's arriving in a little bit. So someone contacted me and said they've got an issue with the AC compressor on their car. And the car probably needs a new compressor, has a bit of a charging issue, probably needs something else. So the car has a battery lease, but the guy said, the bumper's not too good because it's actually a write-off. Which is a bit odd, really, because when a Zoe with a battery lease gets written off, there might be a noisy van in a second, the battery lease should be paid out, which is very strange. And what happened in this case is they gave the write-off money to the owner, and the owner didn't pay off the lease. So the Zoe is a write-off, but still has a battery lease. So I'm going to have a chat to Mobilize about that and see what they think about that, because that just shouldn't happen, and it highlights the holes and the issues with this system. The insurance company have acted incorrectly because they've given money to the owner when there's effectively a finance agreement on the car. So it proves that this system is a mess, and I will let you know what happens with that one as well. All right, catch you later.